AI has a lot of uses, and as cybersecurity professionals, we look at it's a double-edged sword, right? So can it be leveraged to do phenomenal things and help drive efficiency? Absolutely. Can it also be leveraged for doing nefarious things? Absolutely. It's like anything in life, right? It's the yin and the yang, or both sides of it. But DigiCert is in a unique position. So not only do we work with industry standards and then we provide solutions to our customers, but it comes back to the concept of digital trust.
All right. Well, welcome to the Head of the Breach podcast. I'm your host, Case Camilleri. We talk with industry experts, all related to offensive security. Today, I'm joined with Bindi Davé. She has 16 years of experience in cybersecurity. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. How did you get your start and how did you become a deputy CISO?
Sure. So, as you mentioned, I've been in the security space for a number of years. I graduated with a degree in finance at a time when it wasn't ideal to be in finance. And so I graduated early and I had 2 job offers. And so I go to my dad and I'm like, hey, I am going to travel the world. I'm going to install DVD players and headrests. It's going to be fantastic. But it's contract, okay, Dad? And he's like, what else you got?
What else you got?
So I joined as a project manager for a boutique cybersecurity company outside of Chicago that handled vulnerability assessments, pen tests, and leaned in. They were a PCI QSA. So worked in a lot of compliance aspects. That's how I started. And through that, I had my come up in program and project management. I've worked at very large organizations and consulting and in-house capacities, as well as smaller ones. And it's been exciting.
Nice. I too as well cut my teeth on some PCI compliance stuff as well as I went through, and it's exciting times. What do you think is, during your early start, what is something that you've learned in your career? What was kind of eye-opening in cybersecurity when you started?
So having a business background gives me the ability to apply context, right? Which is super important, especially now as I've progressed and lead global teams. But I think it's fascinating that breaking stuff is actually how you get to know how to fix it, right? And we live in a connected world. Everyone uses the internet, right? We're an information society. And being able to be on the side of good and apply trust in these areas was fascinating. So I remember I led CEH, or ethical hacking classes, and doing my first vulnerability scan, right? So my mentor was like, this is how you load up the tool that we were using, and how you put the IP in. And after the scan came out, and I'm like, oh my gosh, what are you going to do about it?
Right.
So
that's the real hard work.
Yeah, that sparked the passion. I'm like, this should be fixed.
Yeah, right. So fast forward to today. You're working in digital trust. What is digital trust, and why is it important?
Yeah, so when we look at non-digital trust, right? We're sitting here having a conversation. We had our introductions, we have an understanding of who each are, and we're in this discussion. So on the digital side, we need to be able to trust that application that we're downloading, right? The new update from Apple, let's say, doesn't have a backdoor on it, and it's not going to do something nefarious in your system. Or when you log into your banking app and you put in your credentials and you see your bank account, that is a trusted communication, that you're leveraging AI in your organization and you're utilizing that LLM or that software. So we don't think about these things, right? It's just we trust them. You go to the doctor and you're getting an MRI scan done. Your doctor tells you to, you go and get the scan done, and then you get the results and you talk about that. But you're not looking at like, oh, well, what is the security posture of your IoT device, right? You're trusting that. And in a society, especially an information society, we need to be able to have those elements where you don't have to be nervous that, hey, this update from Apple or the MRI machine or what have you, you know that they're in a known good state and they are trusted. So that's what DigiCert's specializes in, is providing that digital trust component as well as driving automation. So not only can you discover and build inventories of all of your crypto assets, but as regulations change, as industry standards change, as certs expire, right, yeah, which constantly happens, and that window is getting shorter and shorter, you have automation to manage all of that so that you remain secure and therefore digitally trusted.
Yeah. And is zero trust impacting the way you guys are thinking about this?
Absolutely. So how I like to think about zero trust. Imagine going to the airport, right? We all flew here. We're at Black Hat.
Yep.
So you go up to the TSA agent and you show them your ID, right? Your passport and your boarding pass. And then you go through and get your security scans done, whether you're pre-check or not, etc. And then they let you into the airport. So that effectively is zero trust, right? Take a step further back to whoever issued your passport. You know, United States of America, you have your passport agency, but before they issued that passport, you had to give them information to verify who you are, right? So this is whatever the documents that they required before they issued that. That is also zero trust. So if we apply that into our digital arena, when you think about zero trust, it is how are we continuously verifying and giving that stamp of approval that, you know, Bindi, you are who you say you are, the information that you're attempting to access, you are intended to access. And then when you talk about digital trust, it all comes together. It's a symbiotic relationship because you want to leverage zero trust to promote further digital trust.
Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. If that makes sense.
Yeah. You know, trust no one, right? You know, it's what we've said in cybersecurity for a long time, but you know, it's funny how things evolve with trust. Speaking about things evolving,
yeah,
right? Everyone's hot topic, AI, right? Mm-hmm. In your work, how is AI impacting what you're doing? How are you using it?
Yeah, so it is all the buzz, right? Here, everyone is, it's AI everything, you know.
You can go on the Black Hat floor and not see AI this, AI that. You know,
my gosh.
Everyone has AI. Now it's like paper and pencil, you know?
Yeah, this water was probably processed by AI. It's everywhere. And, you know, AI has a lot of uses, and as cybersecurity professionals, we look at it's a double-edged sword, right? So can it be leveraged to do phenomenal things and help drive efficiency? Absolutely. Can it also be leveraged for doing nefarious things? Absolutely. It's like anything in life, right? It's the yin and the yang, or both sides of it. But DigiCert is in a unique position. So not only do we work with industry standards and then we provide solutions to our customers, but it comes back to the concept of digital trust. So when you look at all the components that go into that software, right, that was delivered, it's almost like you going to the grocery store and seeing that, hey, I'm going to buy this organic thing and it's got the organic, you know, little logo certification on it. And you're like, oh, this is a known good thing. Similarly, when we look at our software and our applications, you're going to get your software bill of materials, right? Your SBOM. And you're going to see all of the components that went into it. And then you're going to sign that. And once you sign that, it can't be tampered with. So now you know that this can be trusted, and all of those components and any changes that happen to them are tracked in your bill of materials. And so DigiCert is providing those types of solutions so that we can, again, come back to, hey, AI is everywhere. How do I know what's good for me, what's not? Just like you would go to the store and trust that organic seal.
Exactly. And then in what we do with penetration testing, there's many times where we will poison the watering hole or the supply chain attack by, editing that package somewhere, and then it just gets absorbed in, but if you have the SBOM, you have it signed, it prevents things like that from detecting. Speaking of nefarious things, in your 16 years of experience, you've probably seen a lot. Do you have a story or an incident response case or something that we can all learn from?
You want to share some more stories?
More stories.
Yeah. Oh gosh. So, you build a camaraderie with folks when you go into battle, right? There was this one incident. I can't share too much, but most of this is public knowledge, or it was reported on. But there was an incident. So we had malware running through our environment, and you're talking about hundreds and thousands of CIs that are affected, right? And so the malware is going through our environment. We're trying to get an understanding of scope and how we can eradicate it. We didn't have the tools that we should have had on those endpoints in order to be able to respond and then recover quickly.
Yeah.
So I think it took about 25 hours of correlating spreadsheets, just to get an inventory of all of the systems that we needed to deploy the security tooling to. So we get through this, right? We're mid-incident, it's laterally moving.
Working off of spreadsheets.
There's probably 250 people engaged on this incident between security and SRE. And I mean, it was pretty broad. So we finally get a handle of scope, and we're like, all right, we're going to deploy the tool. Let's leverage SALT.
Which, probably not the best time to be deploying a tool, right? During an incident.
I mean, you want to go through your testing protocols, but I guess chaos, funky is a theory. So SALT goes out, deploys the tool. We get visibility into those CIs. A couple hours later, Puppet goes out, removes it.
Oh.
So that
one step forward, one step back.
And now I can laugh about it. Yeah. But when you're on day 8 of that incident, with no sleep, right? And you're like, are you kidding me? This is a spreadsheet. It wasn't funny at the time, but it definitely gave me some insights into things that I would do differently moving forward. And I think the next call, once we got through it, was getting our executives together of budget increases and things that we can do.
What would you do different? I think I may know, but what do you do now, I guess, to prevent working on spreadsheets and trying to figure out inventory?
Automation, we should embrace it, right? It helps us be more efficient, but be strategic with it. So I've seen a lot of organizations that'll look at, hey, let's just buy a tool for a tool, and we'll implement it, and great, it's done. Now we have IAM.
I bought a box.
I bought a box
over here.
Yeah, it's good. And it's like, okay, but where's the connective tissue? Because cybersecurity, I mean, you know this on the pen testing side, everything is interrelated. You have a vulnerability, you have to look at the data that's on it. That vulnerability, if it was exploited, what data it would compromise. Okay, that's your data part of the program and your DLP component, and then who's accessing it. And so it's all woven together. So why aren't we building the connective tissue also within our technologies, with our processes and our people that support those? So that's what I've done differently now is there's an inventory. but it's continuously updated without manual intervention, right?
Yes.
So we have discovery scanning happening on our subnets that's going in and making sure that we can reconcile off of our inventory source, but also apply prioritization with business context to those CIs.
What do you mean by that?
So teams usually run lean, right? And we're going to have vulnerabilities are going to come up. And usually within organizations, it's not the security team that's actually remediating them. So how do we know that this is super important? So business context is like identifying your crown jewels, right? Or what your protect surface is. So things that are valuable to the business. So is it how much ARR or revenue would be impacted if that CI or that box goes down? If you're like DigiCert is a certificate authority, what lives on those systems? What types of data?
What if I can't get something signed?
What if I can't get something
Right.
signed, right? So having that tiered approach of, hey, this is tier 0, or tier 1, this is super important to our business, versus tier 4, it's a isolated dev test or whatever box, like, but yes, it has a vulnerability on it, but okay, like you can treat it a little bit differently. I'm not saying it's not as critical, right? So apply that business context, and now you're putting automated risk levers against that to say, I know about it. Now I have visibility into it. I know how important it is so teams can prioritize. And now I know the cyber risks against it because I'm doing attack surface management and monitoring against those systems. I have an understanding of what vulnerabilities live on there, which ones are actively being exploited, so that we can build standard operating procedures to support different teams in inoculating ourselves and remediating it, or even just auto remediating it, right? Depending on the risk tolerance of the business.
Right. And so was it a combination of build and buy, completely just build? You know, what did you do to kind of build that automation or get to that automation with attack surface?
Oh, I MacGyvered it, you know.
Awesome.
But it's that connective tissue. So it's a combination. We built the connective tissue, we bought the tools. So you can leverage an inventory source. So wherever your VMs are getting created from, it should also auto-populate. I don't want to call it a CMDB because not every organization will have.
Right. Because you're looking at it from like the proactive.
Exactly.
Right? Versus
Exactly.
just where are my assets, you know?
Exactly. So, and then leveraging the EDR to actually go out and tag those assets, pull automatically from the fields from where that inventory is, so that we get ownership information, those classification tiers, and then utilizing that same endpoint agent to look at the vulnerabilities and the issues that are living on that host with benchmarking scores. And then, you know, pushing all of that data into our SIM to then correlate it and apply that intelligence against it, and then cut out tickets into our ticketing system. So combination of tools and lots of different processes against that, and communication, so that when someone in SRE gets a ticket, it's that they have to go and remediate it. They have an understanding of how important that CI or that OS issue is. They have an understanding of what that remediation recommendation is. They get a link to the EDR to go and leverage that to patch the system if that's within their tolerance levels. And it's just pointed information, right? So it's a labor of love, but it's something that I've seen a lot of organizations struggle with doing the basics really well, and this helps set a good foundation.
What lessons did you learn from building that? Because I imagine you just didn't do that in 1 week, and maybe you did because that's your superpower. But I imagine it was kind of a longer road to get there.
Yeah.
So, what are some of the lessons you've learned to kind of build that?
teamwork makes the dream work, right? Technology can be easy. You can procure something and you leverage APIs and like tech is easy, but it's, do you have the championship with the other teams? Because security teams, we're bringing that visibility, but we're not necessarily using the solution, right, that we've built. We're partnering with other teams, usually in the technology departments and SRE and our engineers and our developers, to making sure that we're joining forces with them and they're part of the design and part of the discussions and what they'll be actually receiving. It's a huge part of it. And giving them early on information before it starts getting to leadership and executives, right, of what they can do now that we have visibility to shift whatever their posture looks like. So that relationship building, and then really good executive dashboards that can be leveraged to understand what we can gain from that visibility, right?
What are some of the things that you like to have in an executive dashboard, or what are the things that you're communicating up?
Yeah, so definitions are important. So I love to start with like defining things, because the dashboards should tell a story and it should feed off of the other pie charts and tiles and stuff.
Show a trend of where we're going.
Yeah.
Going in a good direction, a bad direction?
Yeah. But to your point though, and it has to balance it. I don't want to just show bad. We're not Chicken Little in security. The sky is not always falling. Like, otherwise, when it is, like, you know, it's going to pay attention. Yeah. So starting with definitions of, if you take OS vulnerabilities, for example, what does our estate look like? So here is a pie chart. This is your percentage of compliant versus not compliant with your security policy, which is driven by your remediation SLAs and stuff that you work with people to make sure that those definitions are established, right? So what does compliant mean? Okay, well, compliant can mean that you don't have any patches missing on your system. That's a great start, right?
Great start.
Great start. Or you're within SLA. That's also okay, because the business has set those risk thresholds. Or you have a valid risk exception filed and approved, right? Which is another aspect of it. So starting with that visibility, and then where it's not compliant, showing where some of those issues reside, under what teams, where our riskier areas are. Use that asset classification to also show that the difference between, you know, tier 0 and tier 4, but drive the conversation of, if there was one thing that a team could do in their sprint, what would it be? And this is where the SIM is magical, right? Because we don't care about, I mean, we do, but it's not necessarily about the 75,000 vulnerabilities. Like, I don't want to send 75,000 tickets also and show that on the dashboard. Or maybe it's not about the 10,000 patches that remediate those vulnerabilities. Maybe it's all fixed by an upgrade.
Yeah.
Right?
You just do that
one thing.
That one thing. In fact, it can even be automated, and then
and then we're good. Yeah, exactly. So being able to tell that story so that teams can use it, putting flexibility into those dashboards, right? Drop downs and such, where teams can just see their environment. What are your most vulnerable systems? What tier are they? But also the good side of it. So to your point, what are the trends? How are you guys actually burning down some of these issues? Or what does your remediation life cycle look like? And then making sure that we also show metrics against the risk exception workflow, which is usually process driven. But that's like your continuous improvement feedback loop. Because if you have these exceptions that get filed, you're now looking at, do I need to update my standard or baseline? What are the trends in that? And how do we now, that I've found is the anchor point for being able to leverage security as a business enabler, as opposed to the other side of it.
The boy that cries wolf all the time.
Exactly.
One thing that we recently introduced in our platform that is worked really well is tracking the SLAs. Because if you get that critical vulnerability and say you just can't patch your way through it, right? It requires hours and it's complex for a development team to go fix this vulnerability. The business has set, expectations that, hey, we can only have a critical, open for, 18 hours. And they can go in there and they can configure that. But the real benefit in the dashboards, right, is to get to see, like, how is the business performing? Like, are we actually remediating the things that are a significant risk or accepting the risk?
Right.
But like, what is that time to do so, right? So like, hey, if I know it truly takes me, 49 hours to remediate a critical when, our policies are 18, okay, we might need to do a little bit better. What can we learn from this, right? And so to echo your point, the dashboards and reportings have to tell a story.
Exactly. Super important. And also, like, what is the root of it? So maybe it is that complex patch, right? But what if it's actually an issue with how change management is handled?
Yeah.
And what if that's the root where we're not meeting our SLAs?
Yeah.
You get that information from the dashboards and tracking your risk exceptions against them. So you can start, to your point, being a little bit flexible and iterating to what works for both security and the business.
So what is crypto agility?
So similarly, how we talked about our configuration items and having visibility and having an understanding of your protect surface, we also have crypto assets, right?
Yep.
They're everywhere. You might not even know it. And there's certs expire and that time frame gets shorter and shorter as industry standards change. So your ability to not only discover all of your crypto assets, build your inventories, but as regulations change, as they expire, be able to actually manage them too and leverage automation to do that so you don't experience an outage or a security issue, right? So DigiCert, being in that digital trust space and one of our leading providers, we provide that solution to our customers. I think over 80% of our customers are like Fortune 500. So not only do we work with industry standards very closely on what changes are coming up to our baseline rules and requirements, whether it's network or whether it's on the server, but then we also provide the solutions to our customers and then the automation to make sure that they can adapt quickly and are agile to those changes in the environment.
Now that everything is so DevOps, CI, everything, right? You need to be able to generate those things. You need to be able to track those things.
Yeah.
Right? And it's more than just the old days of, I'm gonna get a cert, have someone sign it, I'm gonna have it for 5 years, and I'm gonna do this process again in 5 years. It's not that way anymore, huh?
Yeah. And oopsie, I missed the email to renew, and now we have an outage. I'm sorry. Or here's a spreadsheet.
Yep. Yeah.
So avoid that. Yeah.
Bindi, it's been a great conversation.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming on the podcast. If someone wants to follow your work and what you're doing, how can they reach you or how can they follow you?
Sure. Reach out to me on LinkedIn. I am on there. I also have started a podcast for secure business enablement.
Nice.
It's just getting started, but I'm sharing my journey and lessons learned through this of, as a security leader, what do you go in and do? How do you baseline it and build your program to meet these demands and shift left in the process and pen test everything that goes to production.
Yes. Please do that.
Please do that. But yeah.
Awesome. We'll plug that definitely because people should definitely check that out.
Yeah.
The more information, the more lessons learned through conversations like this, the more successful everyone will be. So really appreciate it.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
Yep.